Good morning, everyone. So let's get started. This session actually it's around the transformation of the food security and livelihood in Syria through collective information management. I have to rephrase this title several times to make sure that it covers what I'm going to say in this presentation. And it took a lot of time to work it around, and I also had some help from ChatGPT as well to put in the objectives and trying to, so this is what I end up with. If you look at it, maybe at the beginning when you signed in to this session, it might be different than this one, but I think this is the most accurate one that I end up with. So in this presentation, we're going to be two speakers, myself, or first, this is not me, this is Mohi. The, the cluster coordinator at WFP for Syria. He's supposed to be here, but he's currently in Damascus, and due to the logistics and so on, he wasn't able to join me in person, but he's with us here in the team and virtually on the Teams. And myself, Mohammed Bello, I'm the country representative for iMMAP Syria-Jordan. Mohi, are you around? You're muted.
Do you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Hi everyone. Sorry if my may be dropped out at any moment because connection sometimes here in Damascus goes away. So hi everyone. Thanks for having us today. I'm Mohi, as already Bello introduced me. I'm the Whole of Syria Food Security Cluster Coordinator, as well as the Cluster Coordinator in Site Syria from WFP. And today we're looking forward to discuss a lot of details and present to you a couple of highlights. Also, I would really just say aside that appreciate Billo, he still tried to make it and to present with us today, even with the difficult times that his family is having in Sudan. So thanks, Billo, for sticking to the schedule with us today. I'll hand it over back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mohi. Actually, me as a Sudanese, this crisis in Sudan is kind of close to my home, or maybe it's in my home. And part of my responsibility actually to this platform to raise the awareness, the issue right now, that's happening right now. And maybe most of you are following the news in Sudan, and mainly it's around in the RFS, the Sudanese army, has been going on for 10 days already, and it's quite tense actually. And there's so many families are besieged in some areas in Khartoum city, and thousands fled already and fled the country as well. And I would say this is going to be quite serious if it's not ended soon, and it might create a new. So I just want to bring it up and just to use the platform to give the awareness part of it. Thank you so much, Mohi. Actually, me as an academic, I don't like do presentation while I'm sitting. So yeah, hope you'll be comfortable with that. Syria crisis, it started in 2011, as you may all know, until now. And of course, it has an effect or some sort of an impact on the food security. Maybe it affect the loss in livelihood, of course, similar to any other crisis, the population displacement and destruction of markets, disturb agricultural production, strain on some host communities, and this is also because of the displacement, population displacement, impact on nutrition, economic decline, and climate-related challenges. Due to these impacts on the food security because of the crisis, the need came in. And this is what we're going to discuss, and we're going to present what the role of iMMAP played during the past period for the past years since the beginning of the crisis, and also in addition to the impact, in addition to this, I'm going to, or actually this presentation is divided into two parts. I'm going to do the first part, which is basically focused on the information management component. And the second part is going to be by the cluster, which is basically presented by Muhi, who is going to show the impact of the effort that has been done jointly between iMMAP and the cluster and the different challenges that we have over there. Okay, so who is familiar with iMMAP? Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, great. So iMMAP is an NGO, non-governmental organization, focuses on information management services. So we don't deliver any in-kinds. Mainly we deliver brains that able to crunch data and to create some useful information. This information is basically for enabling our partners to make some kind of an informed decisions and with high quality targeted assistance. Information management, I know most of the organization, if you're coming from WFP, coming from the FAO, whatever, you have your own information management component, but we are more expert and focused on that. This is mainly the main services that iMMAP is providing, like reports, map, data libraries, and so on, like all the geeky stuff for the information management and technology. In addition to three pillars, the humanitarian information management, supports in different clusters, change management, and capacity development. The current services that iMMAP provides to the Syria FSLA, I'm just going to give you a quick overview on one of our main projects that has been there since like for the past 8 years. And this is mainly kind of a tree map for our project. This project is funded by BHA. And at the beginning, when we started at the beginning of the crisis in 2013, we arrived a bit maybe late, but we started in 2013 in Syria. We were more focused on the IM component, which is basically providing IM support to the cluster. So we deploy people to the cluster, provide it to OCHA as well, help on the assessment and so on. And then during that time, we saw some gap of information, more focus on the food security in Syria. And together with WFP, we start to partnering on this and start to work on this part. There is another component here related to the research analysis. It's kind of context update, political analysis that we produce for the northern Syria, and with some ad hoc reports and RFIs and so on. So this is not going to be our focus. This one we usually do, and basically this is the core of iMMAP. And this one is basically what we are more focusing on, which is basically the Food Security and Livelihood unit that based in Amman. This unit involves some experts in information management, in data collection, in analysis, and so on. So basically, we provide food security and livelihood products, and those are the products. Each one of these dots, it's the number of products that produced over the year. We'll come back to this. Okay. Okay. So, as I said, we are based in Jordan, Amman. However, we're able to collect and analyze data in Syria, and mainly on northeast and northwest Syria. And basically, because we're not allowed to work on the government-controlled area, so it basically is the northern part of Syria. This is kind of a coverage of the data collection that we have, and this is basically the challenge. The challenge in being able to collect data, accurate data, with a quality while you're not there. Through partners, this is the coverage of the partners, and we have also service provider on the ground that provide us with the information. Managing this team and being able to collect the data remotely, it's not an easy thing, but we succeeded to do that with an accurate reports. So when it comes to producing information product. When you say information product, it's information product related to the food security. Mainly, there are 3 blocks, and maybe most of you are familiar with these blocks, starting with preparation, collecting and analyzing, and reporting. I'm just going to run you through the pipeline very quickly and show you where is our strengths mainly. The first thing, we start with the concept development of the product, and this is basically when a new product is requested or a product that's already there, but we need to discuss it with the partners and to see how or what mainly need to be the main focus of this particular product. And I'm going also to run you quickly over the different product that we have. And then study and plan and design and coding. And when you say coding, basically coding is the tool that is doing or used for the data collection, and coding of the tool that will crunch the data and produce the indicators or the structured data at the end of the day for the reporting. Then train the data collection team, and this is kind of a remote training that we conduct. It's also a challenge to do a remote data collection training, but then this training, of course, will be followed up with coordination of the data collection on the second part as well. And then data cleaning, feedback goes again, and then at the clean data, there is data analysis tool using the R and SPSS and visualization at the end of the day. There is also the report writing or the fact sheet or a dashboard as a report or the final product. In addition to the production is basically how to produce the report to make it like looks appealing with all the designs and everything, with the charts, and making sure that it's more attractive and kind of inviting for the audience to read. And then finally, the dissemination, which is basically conducted by the guys in the food security cluster. Distribution to the partners, of course, and then maybe publish it online. Our strengths mainly, it relies here on the collection of the data and the analysis. As I said, we do the data collection, we do the data cleaning and follow up, and the tool design and the data visualization. For the data collection or the coordinated data collection, we do the operation plan. Although the team is remote, but we manage the operation plan. We manage if any logistic or transportation equipment needed. We schedule the interview through pre-calls and so on. And then we do the daily tracking of partner submissions. Whenever that's something submitted, either by a service provider or a partner, we do a daily check for the submission, making sure that the data is cleaned and aligned. Then we do the data cleaning through checkpoints. Checkpoints is basically something that we learned over the past few years over time. When you do or you build a tool for data collection, sometimes the data is not quite aligned. Maybe there's some issues with the interview itself. Like, for example, if we have a household interview, and then this interview it's planned to be like an hour, and then with the tool, you'll be able to see when the start and the end time of the interview. If it took instead of 1 hour, it took 20 minutes. What does it mean? There's cheating, of course. It's not a full interview. It's impossible to go through all the questions and making sure that you are asking all the questions. So there's an equation will show an alert that this specific entry has something suspicious, need to be revised. And if it took longer, also, this would be also an indication, either the training for the enumerator or something with the beneficiary or the person that is interviewed need to be revised. So, and other also tools, and I don't want to just touch base on all of them, but many checkpoints that we do, so make sure that the data is cleaned and up to date. Then follow-up process, if something wrong or something like that, we need to check on that again with the enumerator or with the partners, and then validate from the technical working group or cluster members. We take the data, give it to the cluster group or the working group or the partners, and to look at it if they see any kind of conflict in the data. Then we have, this is also one of the most important components, that we have an in-house build-up tool that analyzes the data. So using the R and the SPSS, basically you feed in the data and it brings all the indicators out, calculated according to the geographical grouping, the summary statistic, and so on, making sure it's ready for the visualization. Visualization, it could be static visualization or a dynamic through dynamic dashboard using Tableau or Power BI. Finally, the visualization is the fact sheet mass production using advanced data visualization tool. It's basically when we have, like, for example, we have some of the assessment, it has to be done for around 130 sub-districts in Syria. The data is an Excel sheet, cleaned, ready, but then you need to produce a single fact sheet for each sub-district for easy comparison, especially with the static one. And this basically what our team or visualization team does, using some tools that to produce this fact sheet to PDF ready to be used, and especially we use that sometimes for the FSLA when it support is needed. Like we provide the support to the cluster, so producing this kind of fact sheet. Visuals, illustration, try to make some complicated context easy to understand and so on through visuals and so on. And then the interactive dashboard, of course, is part of the last delivery. I'm just going to run you through the different product very quickly, what the main purpose, I'm not just going to go deep on this, the main purpose of each delivery. Yes, please, come on. No way. That's all right. So, the Integrated Price Monitoring Initiative, it's one of the first or one of the products that we produce to the food security cluster. Price monitoring, it's quite critical. Basically looking at the monitoring the agricultural market in the northeast Syria. It's basically surveys that go to the market, looking at the different markets, and then looking at in a seasonal basis and assess the availability and the country of origin, and then prices of agricultural inputs for the season. We come up mainly with two products, the interactive dashboards that shows, for example, the country of origin. This shows a specific product. It comes like majority is coming from Syria, then Turkey, then US and so on. And also attached to it a written report as a summary report, looking at the different findings out of this study. Another one, next one is the crop monitoring and food security situation. This one actually provides integrated food security analysis. It's a biannual report that look at the crop monitoring and monitoring report, and this agreed with the cluster. So mainly agreed with the cluster on which commodity need to be surveyed. And also looking at the climate change and its impact on crop production, pest disease control, and fire incidents, and so on, and how this affects this specific product. And then support, estimate the impact of the population. The wheat and flour bread facility mapping, it's also one of our most needed and requested product from our partners and the cluster. It's basically looking at the wheat and flour processing assessment, looking at the bread program evaluation, looking at the value chain mapping and comprehensive supply chain overview. So looking at the bread facility like the bakeries and so on. And this is also critical because we are funded by BHA, and this product is mainly looking at the bread and the pipeline on how things are going on with the bread there. So it's kind of a monitoring tool for BHA to look at also the utilization and so on in northeast Syria. And during the last earthquake in Turkey and Syria, we managed also to produce a specific product only focused on the wheat and bread facility mapping, looking at the damage that occurred because of the earthquake. So looking at the operational bakeries, the number of damaged bakeries and so on, providing some sort of statistic on bakeries, mills and silos. And we managed to produce this specific product rapidly and quickly because we have the tool set, we have the data collection team there, we have our partners ready for the call, and we have the tool to crunch the data and come up with the report. So it's like took no time to produce it and to report it to the partners. The value chain studies mainly looking at to examine the value chain of a key commodity and public service. Also, like looking of this is an example of one of these reports for the wheat value chain assessment. It can be also for the olive oils, for example, and so on. And this is decided by the cluster and partners which one they need us to focus on in a specific round. And specific goods or services will be selected, as I said, by the food security or food security cluster and the humanitarian partners, and possible area of focus also if it's focused on climate, focus on a specific fire incidents and so on. So basically this kind of reports, it's kind of a biannual report that we produce as well. And as I said, it's consulted with the FSL cluster and humanitarian partners. It might focus on the livestock, on vegetables, on cash, crops, agriculture inputs, non-agricultural value chain, cross-sectional services, and so on. Finally, the animal feed and fodders. Maybe I don't even need to present the same story. We're looking at infrastructure. We're looking at examining the processing facilities, the infrastructure, the markets, dynamics, the availability, identify the need and gaps, value chain. Also, the results will be informed to improve to improve the industry, and also producing like different products. Some of them like dashboards and fact sheets and so on. This is mainly the product. In addition to that, something that we didn't mention is the first one is the capacity development. So capacity development is a training that we provide to our partners in Northeast and Northwest, and it focuses on a climate smart agriculture, market system development, sustainable FSL framework, and IM training, because this is what we do and very good at. So we provide this IM training in data collection, mapping, and visualization to the partners. So at least they have the power, or they have the skill or the basic skills to do their own small assessments. But when they need the big one, they come to us. Well, if you go to iMMAP website, you just Google iMMAP website and you go to the Syria page, you will find all the products there published as well. So this is mainly what we do right now to the cluster, but we have also some extra potentials that we and capacities and capabilities from our team in Amman and globally. And we're able to do some other studies because we have some other resources and techniques that we can utilize. Also, I'm just going to run you through them very quickly. And it's a bit technical, but I'll try just to show how these things works. And maybe you can start thinking on how this can be utilized for the food security if you are a food security focused person. Okay. And at the end of this 5 or 6 slide, there is a quiz. Get ready. So start thinking while I'm presenting. Okay. First, what we call is the vegetation index analysis. It's a technique, a remote sensing technique used for measuring the health and density of vegetation on the Earth's surface. Satellite image, extracting some colors, doing this kind of geeky stuff related to the GIS, and enabling us to know more about the land use, the health, the crop health, the crop monitoring, agricultural potentials, and drought monitoring. Examples, like we have the land use and land cover in Raqqa in Syria. With this satellite image, you'll be able to see the cropland, how big is it, the the build-up areas and the water surface and so on. And this will also help to see the changes over time. If you took like this image 3 years back or every year, you'll be able to compare how things are moving in terms of the population and so on, and cropland and so on. Agriculture potential, crop monitoring, or crop health also. This is kind of looking at the different products, the different, what we call it, technically it's related to the density or the color that extracted from the satellite image that we show which kind of product or crop is planted in a specific area. I'm not quite deep technical on this, but this is basically what it does. And then, of course, the drought monitoring, looking, for example, this is in Hasaka, looking at different areas and how the drought is affecting specific areas because maybe of the lack of precipitation, the rains, and different climate changes that recently took place all over the world. So just try to remember them, okay? Land and crop, land use and land cover, agricultural potential, crop monitoring, crop health, drought monitoring. Another one is also looking at the water surface, which is basically called the watershed analysis, looking at the water availability, land use, and water streams. Some example of this, and this is basically also like looking at the suitable, identify the areas that's suitable for different crops, area at risk of food insecurity, suitable for different agriculture practices, with a high relevance for the humanitarian assistant and how to relate it to the humanitarian assistant and the local production of the specific area. Example of this is the watershed analysis. This is in Hasaka, looking at the rainfall and runoff of the water, studying all the water surface in Hasaka. Another example also the water availability or the water stream, basically looking at also different water streams and water availability. And this is also can fall into another example on the water. Okay. There's another example also coming for the water availability there. So we can also monitor the increase or the decrease on the amount of water in Lake of Assad, for example. This is the one that we are basically studying or usually doing a study around them. This is an example also for the water mapping. This is Furat, looking at the different level of the water over time and also might give some indications. This is an example during the cholera outbreak. We managed to look at some of the stained water that potentially might pose cholera because of the decrease on the level of the Furat River. Also the flood mapping. This is Al Arish camp, which has been flooded also in Al Asad Lake. One of the ways that also this could have been avoided is by looking at the history or the historical satellite images and to see the potential areas that might be flooded, because maybe there's some areas you see it and you think it's safe, but then if you look at the history based on the different rain or precipitation or any other factors, it might be get flooded. So this is also one of the ways that one of the tools looking at the flood mapping or looking at the areas that might get flooded over time. And this is the water level monitoring also for the Asad Lake, looking at, starting from 2018 to 2022, and how the amount of water increased and then decreased. And this is also a very important indicator looking at the water availability. Last one is the water quality monitoring. It's looking at some lakes or water service through the satellite image and measuring the chlorophyll level, which how much oxygen in the water remotely. And this is also will show to what extent the water is healthy and suitable either for drinking or for the agriculture. Okay. So do you have your mobile phones ready to scan this code and look at the different tools or different things that we've done or presented and see to what extent it's relevant to the food security, maybe in Syria or globally? You need to select only 3. Yeah, it's basically just please rank the mentioned tools there based on their relevance in addressing the food security in Syria or global. You can select 3. 2 participants, 3 participants. Just for the sake of curiosity, I need to know how. Yeah, we're listening or not also. Or I lost you. And the guys online also, they can do the same. Please. I see the water quality mapping is kind of okay. Agricultural potential, crops monitoring, interesting. Drought went to the second, the water availability to the third. Okay, things keep changing. We're gonna add this result to our recommendation for the next round. Okay, agricultural potential, crop monitoring, water availability and water streams, drought monitoring, the third rank. We're done. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave the stage or the mic to my colleague Mohi for the next couple of slides. Mohi, over to you. We can't hear you.
Hello? No?
Yes?
Shukran Billo. Thank you.
Speak up, please.
Yeah, you hear me very well?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, great. I don't know if you can see me because I have the camera on, but I don't see myself there. So I'll just try turn off, turn on. I don't know. So I'll start. Thanks everyone. So I just want to take one step back, if that's okay. And just thanks to Billo for going through all the details around the tools. And in terms of the food security cluster, I see messages there is an echo, so I think that's an issue. Billo, do you think maybe the mic is on?
Can you also speak up, please?
Do you hear me now? I'll try to reconnect.
Mohi, go ahead, please. Okay.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, colleagues, is it okay now or there is still echo? Difficult to hear me? Okay, I'll just okay, if it's acceptable, that's okay. Sorry for that. So just one step back in terms of the food security cluster and in Syria, I just wanted to also share with colleagues that we're looking at very unique architecture related to how coordination run in Syria. We're looking at 3 key hubs that where coordination operates, also partners that responds to the food security and livelihood, with several activities. In total, we have 92 food security cluster partners are working in Syria through the 3 different hubs, which including a cross-border response as well as in Syria and within the country. That includes, of course, several teams that the food security cluster deploy to work with a partner and coordinate the response. In addition to that, the lead agencies, WFP and FAO, extend the support to in terms of human resource as well as in terms of tools required for the final deliverables of the food security cluster, which we're referring also to the HNO and HRP. I will just mention here as well that as we're discussing today, that sorry, I'm just seeing another message. I hope colleagues are hearing me even in the room or online. But I'll keep going. It seems working so far. So as the discussion today very linked to also to the information management as well as how we translate it and transform it. Now, as Illo's already presented, iMMAP cover a big part of where the cluster and partners are looking at information that need to be provided that can inform the decision as well as the approach for the response, but by partners. Also, on the other hand, the food security cluster work with different other partners where also can support in providing information and different styles or criteria. And by the end, the cluster will play a role in terms of having a more complementary approach where we use all this information together and consolidate to get to the final deliverable. In terms of looking at where do we use the data and how do we use it, it is important to highlight that we have a lot of information coming in, and usually through the cluster, where is the platform that used for analyzing all the data coming in. We have a different tools that's including some of it where Bill already explained to us, and we have also other tools which working basically from different hubs and also different way of data collection and also analyzing. By example, we have some areas where we cannot actually access the area itself, so we go with different technique. And that one of the examples is the satellite images, etc. But from the other side or other areas, we do have access. So we also go with the household approach assessment, as well as with community analysis or data information management, so level. Then within Syria itself, and just here to highlight, and I think, sorry, Billo, we can move to the next slide if that's okay. So just on the slide itself, we wanted to include two key products that the food security cluster provide and produce. And also we wanted to give some, holistic picture on what is going on within the food security and livelihood cluster and what partners are basically delivering by the end. And as you see, this is the Syria map, and where we look at key activities that we respond to through everyone and all partners, and also highlighting the main, let's say, areas or subjects that can give a very, let's say a short story on what is happening at this stage, and that already used by, or this product, by example, have been produced by using different tools to reach this product. That's including the 5 Ws of the cluster, that's including all other analysis tools that we can contribute to the final product. It is important to mention as well that these products, it need to be up to date. So it's a monthly process that we need to go through, like a very long process, and also cleaning and as well as double check as this products by the end goes to the partners, where actually inform a response decision later on. So it is very sensitive and important that we do provide and produce a product that inform later on the response itself. So this is why the information management is a key, and it has a huge contribution to the food security and livelihood component and response with partners as well as at the cluster level. I would like to highlight that using all the tools that we have, including, in addition to what already presented by iMMAP, we have also key two tools that or assessments conducted in Syria for the food security and livelihood cluster. The first one is the food security assessment, which run in areas under the GOS, as well as we have the food security and livelihood assessment, which run at the areas, let's say, cross-border. By the end, these two key tools or key two assessments, it's a kind of high level of assessments where we reach to 40,000 households, like by example last year, that the outcomes of these two assessments, the products that iMMAP colleagues mentioned, as well as FAO, WFP, bulletin monitoring, as well as we use like other maybe 10 to 15 products, it comes to feed into the humanitarian needs overview. And this goes through like a very, let's say, structured process of consultation that all partners and key experts come in for food security and livelihood, and the cluster provide the environment and the platform where we validate basically the findings of all these tools. By example, last year, the Chano process came or gave us the findings for the food security and agriculture sector for 2023 indicated 15 million people in need. And that's, of course, including 12.1 million people food insecure. This is, of course, alarming, and this when we got to this for sure message or findings, this came through all the process, all the tools that contributed to have a very solid evidence-based food security assessment and food security analysis. In addition, I would just say that within Syria now we are having multi-crises. It's not anymore one crisis. So this is also making it more challenging when we come to what tool to pick and how to use. By example, now in Syria we are dealing with a conflict, with also climate shocks, as well as now looking at the earthquake recently, and that would now require from us to adapt and also revise what tools we need to use, as well as what to prioritize. So these discussions are already ongoing, and would love also to hear from colleagues joining the session on any other experiences related. Particularly themes where Syria now and the food security and livelihood cluster indicated with the partners to concentrate on for the 2024 year and for 2023 as well as for the 2024, as Syria, as you are aware, moved to the multi-year HRP. So we're looking now at 2 years humanitarian response plan, not anymore 1 year. And themes including first climate shocks, and that's including drought-like condition, water scarcity, as well as flooding, harsh weather, fire, crops, as well. And then we look, of course, to the economic crisis, definitely. And this is where we concentrate and work very closely on the prices monitoring on the markets, on also the household vulnerability, as well as purchase power, where here WFP, especially the VAM unit, working with partners who support in providing these regular analysis that can actually support us in terms of how do we redesign the response. In addition to that, we look at themes where we also want to start, or we started focusing on anticipatory action, and how do we anticipate that these themes will be coming back, and it's just becoming like year to year, let's say, challenge. And by example now in Syria, that some tools where we look at it, that to look at projections of how the basically the shock, or how the let's say the crisis would be coming back, and this is very linked to the climate shocks. And here some examples mentioned by iMMAP colleagues. looking at the NDVI or looking at the rainfall projections, and this will give better understanding how that would look like in the future. But then also, what do we do with this information? And this is where is the important part. And that's where we come to the impact. I think we can move to the next slide, if that's okay, below. So just a few points here we listed. So first of all the information transforming within the food security and livelihood cluster to start basically working with the different partners. The cluster play a very strong role and key on how to manage and also how to facilitate these informations and channel them among all agencies and partners working in Syria response, as well as communication with government or local authorities. At the same time, linkages with at the region level. So, by example, looking at the drought-like condition or droughts, we were discussing also at different levels how the drought also impacted Iraq, Syria, and Jordan and Lebanon. So also looking at a higher theme when we speak to our fellows in other countries. And this also the global food security cluster play a very important role on how to connect these dots, and this is where also we can come up with the highest impact. So this also require actually an or additional level of information on how do we get this information and how do we analyze it. Another level where we look also how these actually tools helped us, and very good example in Syria I just wanted to include here is the water response plan. So last year, the discussion about the water scarcity and also the impact of the water scarcity, we start seeing it very, very obviously in Syria, and also the projection of this impact is already have been cleared by experts, where it will take for the next couple of years will be more deteriorating the water availability, the water access as well, and related to agriculture. So in Syria, this is where we start looking at more different information management tools, and that's particularly looking at the NDVI, looking also at the rainfall, as well as the water level at the Euphrates River, as well as at lakes such as Asad Lake and others. Then that the analysis where we mixed all the information and looking at the projections and using different tools to tell us what is the deterioration we're looking at and what is the impact. At the same time, that helped us actually to develop a response plan that rely on those needs which were already determined using those different tools, and then the response was developed based on the key needs highlighted. One another topic, and I know that we always link maybe to more like to climate shocks and to some discussions, but I really wanted to highlight also the food security cluster in Syria works a lot on the contingency planning. It's very important, and now in Syria it's become more like actually better with the information and tools used to inform the contingency planning. Some examples. We have in Northwest Syria the UN resolution, and then usually we have this every 7 months when before the resolution discussion started, the contingency planning in case if the resolution will not be renewed. So what do we do as collective partners and also humanitarian? And this has also become one of the systems or structured within how do we be more better in planning. And also understanding our resources and capacity, so this can convey more structured and clear messages to the stakeholders as well as to the donors. In addition, the tools and information definitely by the end it fall in very important exercise where all experts, as I mentioned earlier, come in, and we basically together convey the important final messages and also the short story of what is the situation, the challenge, and also what do we do later on. And of course, all of you familiar with the HNO, and this where with the chapter of the HNO actually summarize all these tools and all this information, outcomes and findings. It's important that to mention within Syria we have several food security cluster working groups. And these tools and the information is collected. It's usually go through a different process before even we get to the final product, and it's a different process or several process go through the cluster working groups, which partners in different levels, local organizations or international or UN agencies, actually contribute to the discussion and also to the validation of the preliminary findings of any assessment or any information collected. So that's actually bring first more transparency as well as more understanding of the context and expertise inputs to the final products, as well as this strengthening the products itself, finding when we have like more let's say contribution and more involvement of the partners themselves with different of course experiences and backgrounds. I think it's important also to highlight the challenges. I think we can go to the next slide, Pillow. So I think it is important also to acknowledge what challenges we are facing, and again, it's also sometimes if we have too much information, it might not be in our favor. So usually that can or might require also a lot of resources to analyze this information. To start with, I think when we look at the technologies used, and this is one of the strengthening point also we have, which is we've got like partners with a very high level or let's say high capacity with technology use, such as iMMAP with us today, and also other also our lead agencies like WFP and FAO. But in the same time, I think the approaches and how the analytical approach that should be used, and this where I think one of the areas where we need to let's say expand more. How do we use or how do we come to let's say one common approach that we do prioritize or we do determine for that context or for that time period. In terms of also the early indication, so again, when I started my also introduction with the Whole of Syria architecture, it's one of the also because of the differences, and we have 3 hubs of operation. It's possible that sometimes some of the studies that we might get approval or we might get access in one of the areas, but not on the rest. And unfortunately, this will not allow us to give the early or like the let's say the full picture of that study or of that let's say particular assessment. In addition to that, the Syria now with the funding also we struggle, and the challenges are becoming more and more difficult. So we've got as a food security and livelihood cluster many also other demand and requests regarding information tools that we or assessment studies that we require to inform and also to support our final deliverables. But unfortunately, as the funding is dropping, that becomes one of the difficulties. We cannot even expand so we can improve from the process. Important also related to what I mentioned earlier, a challenge also, and this is actually takes a lot of the food security cluster team time and also resources and efforts when it comes to harmonizing and coordination among partners regarding what tools, what approaches, what also final objective we want to achieve. And this is actually, especially in very high level response like Syria and many partners operating in different hubs in different areas, it requires more and more like to sit and discuss with the partners in regular basis what the priorities we need to basically list, as well as what the final objective we want to achieve. Like by example, some of the assessments were conducted actually it wasn't fit within some of the objectives determined through the HRP and the HNO. So in that also actually when it comes to cost, it was irrelevant, and it's unfortunate this have been done, which it didn't contribute. So this is one of the examples where I think where also we prioritize to look at it more closely, or the close eye in the future, and also contribute more to have more harmonized approach. One additional, and this is like a thing, or let's say the technical expertise as well in terms of anticipatory action, and also the capacity building with our partners. This is one of the challenges, and I'm very happy to share here that our global and food security global cluster strategy, which is coming soon, and we were discussing this a few months ago in Rome, where we listed also one of the key areas for the strategy and at the global level as anticipatory action. And this is actually is a big it's a big added value, because here at country level we're in line with those priorities. At the same time, we can receive the support required as needed when it comes to capacity and also technical expertise, support us as a cluster as well as support the partners in building that area. I think lastly, and it's a very good discussion today, especially when we come to, and I want to just mention that in terms of the food security and livelihood cluster, it work very closely with the partners as well as with other clusters. It's very important to highlight that we do need to work together in terms of what information is collected and what tools needed to be collected, and as much as to be first cost efficient, as well as how do we project the future of our objectives. So important to mention here, also the food security cluster do or conduct the key tools that contribute to the information gathering, and also how to transform it, but at the same time working closely with other let's say stakeholders. Like in Syria we have the MSNA, with OCHA as we discuss key indicators, and how do we also look at the data and the findings, as well as working with other cluster like in nutrition and early recovery and health. So that's also important to keep in mind, where also this huge amount of information going, that at even a cluster level, and then also integrate and also discuss with other clusters. I think I'll stop here with this slide, and hand it over back to you, Billo, there, and colleagues in the room, and looking forward for the discussion. Thanks. Over.
Thank you so much, Mohi. So it's over to you, who are in the room here, or I think we have around 25 participants also online. So for those who are online, please, if you'd like to add anything or you have any question, feel free to unmute. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Norman Steinmeier, Deputy Humanitarian Director from Welthungerhilfe in Germany. One question: how is the iMMAP project related to other initiatives like REACH, ACAPS, generating information, sharing information, informing the community? How is that related? And are they logging in? Are you consolidating what all these initiatives are doing? Thank you.
Actually, REACH is one of the organizations that also aligned with iMMAP in terms of the mandate, work in data and so on. And also, Mohi, if you'd like to add on that, we are kind of in Syria working together, not overlapping, like because now currently or for the current project we are funded by the same donor and looking at different kind of reporting. So REACH, for example, they're more focused on the like what do you call add to this if you'd like, Muhi, the specific product that REACH.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I think this is this is a good question, to be honest.
Yeah, can you raise your voice, please?
Yeah, now I think it's better. Yeah, I can see the echo disappear. So no, thanks for the question. I just want to say it's very important point. So basically, just to also give a bit more of details. So the food security cluster play the role actually where it comes to different partners and who does what and which areas still we have gap. By example, in Syria, we have a key partners including iMMAP, REACH, HNAP, WFP, FEO. So we look at key deliverables coming from the group. This is a group of partners. So every first of year, the food security cluster basically have the list of what tools, what assessments, what areas that with gaps. Of course, this determined through the working groups. And then discussion start bilaterally or with a group with each, with iMMAP or REACH or WFP and FEO. And then to make sure that each, based on their capacity, based on their area of expertise, and also access as well. And then this whole plan of information collection or let's say data management, etc. Starts, and then the cluster basically by the end all these products conveyed through each agency, each organization, but then the platform basically where all that consolidated, it goes through the some of the food security cluster products where all the key findings from all these assessments and reports goes. By example, REACH does a lot of price monitoring exercise for
market assessments.
Sorry?
Say market assessments also for REACH.
Exactly. So price monitoring, market assessment for cross-border areas, northwest and northeast Syria. WFP maintain the similar price monitoring and market monitoring as well inside areas inside Syria. And then we've got like iMMAP on the value chains, and then FAO they also support in terms of agriculture key indicators and also monitoring. So this is kind of an example where then all the findings coming from these reports go into the monthly food security cluster products, or even particularly within that channel chapter to conclude basically these key findings. Hope this answer.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you. So anyone from those who are online, please feel free to unmute. Okay. Yeah, go. Yeah. Correct. Okay, great.
Thank you. My name is Patience Saungweme. I'm at WHU University in Germany and doing my PhD in humanitarian operations, and I want to focus on food security. So thank you for the presentation. And I think what came to mind for me was thinking about systems and systems approach, that whenever you have data and you have a start of a process somewhere and then you intervene, there's importance to look back at the feedback, right? And the feedback loop. So I was curious on two parts. The first part for iMMAP, in terms of data collection, this is about situational analysis, the start, and, feeding into anticipatory action. But do you then also analyze the end? So the outcomes analysis, and then sort of understand causations, correlations between the outcomes, whether they were successful, not successful, so that the same way you had a dashboard about the situation before intervention or at point of intervention, you could also have a dashboard for outcomes and what was successful, what was not successful, so that lessons could be carried on.
Yeah, this is actually, thank you so much for your question. This is remind me one of our exercises that we are doing for WFP in Jordan, which is basically in WFP in Jordan, WFP provides this kind of support to the people in camp and the host communities. And iMMAP is doing some sort of third-party monitoring exercise in a project called FSOM, the Food Security Outcome Monitoring. And it's a quarterly basis assessment that we do for them. And it's a household survey looking at the food security indicators, all the normal food security indicators and nutrition. And it consists of a baseline and endline. And both are combined together at the end of the day in the same product or the final product, looking at things if it has been improved or declined and so on. And this tool actually, or this exercise that we're doing for WFP is considered one of the key product and key information source, even for their advocacy as well. So whenever that they have like this kind of donor meeting or planning meeting or something like that, they depends or focus on this specific exercise, looking at the different trends on how things evolve positively or negatively. So yeah, it depends on what the study is, and this is kind of one of the practices that we're doing. Yeah, I hope this answers your question. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, the second part about the outcomes, so causations, correlations, so that you know what policy recommendations actually worked, what interventions worked, what didn't, that level of clarity.
No, this level actually it's more.
No, for the second part, I think maybe for Mohi, in terms of like.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
This is what I meant. Like for us, it's mainly focusing on the tool and the production itself. But then in terms of policy and so on, it's more for the cluster or the partners that we are serving. So over to you, Mohi, if you'd like to add on that.
Yeah, thanks. No, that's a good question, actually. Yeah, the outcomes coming from the iMMAP and colleagues, also other partners' products, is an input, right, for how the response should be framed. It's a very good question when it comes to the end line. And again, back to the challenges, and to be here also less frank in saying also what challenges we're facing. Sometimes we cannot actually, especially in Syria context, access approvals or access for the similar exercise to have that there. So this also sometimes, let's say, block us from understanding. But we have some also good, let's say, I want to also reference to examples here because it's easier. And I want to say, by example, the wheat and bread products that iMMAP is providing to the cluster, and this has happened in a quarterly basis, which we take it actually as a baseline and end line, right? So every quarter that's informed basically how is the level of the wheat production, in addition the bakeries and also production of a bread level. So that's tell us each quarter of the year the trend. And then this actually help us at the cluster level to come and discuss with our partners if we see in certain areas or we see there is alarming, let's say, signals for one of the value chain, that where we come to the partners and start reframe and redesign certain activities in certain area, and here that including, of course, the development of the response itself, the revision of what packages or what activities need to be provided, and also the prioritization of the geographic areas, and lastly, advocacy level, where we need to convey this to donors, supported by the findings coming from actually the end line, and also the analysis happen within that trend. So that's one example. It came to my attention now to actually refer to, but that's basically how it's translated actually to the response. I hope this answer over.
Thank you. Very informative. Thank you so much. So, any more questions? Yes. Okay. Maybe question first and then. Yeah.
Yes, hello, thank you so much. My name is Sophia Jarvis. I'm with DMAC initiative hosted by DRC. I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about the types of partners that you work with, are they already working in information management, or are they doing direct response? How do you kind of coordinate with them, and what types of challenges do they face in gathering the information that you then use?
Yeah, again, I think this is also some coordination question to Muhi to answer.
Yeah, it's mixed. So let me take this one. Thanks for the question. Actually, this is I will try to be short because we have so many partners. So I'll just start with saying we have two types, right? So by example, you have the operational partners, and I mean our lead agencies, WFP, FAO. They of course lead in the data collection inside Syria and also outside. So that's one part, and then also we do have partners, by example, like Reach, iMMAP, HNAP, where do they collect data only. They don't have actually activities or operation response to food security. In addition to that, we know that some of, by example, like iMMAP or Reach, they might go to a third party partner as well. We know that the capacity, there are very key partners who are very experienced now in data collection for years. They have been working with our food security and livelihood cluster information partners. Also here to highlight different areas, different key partners, just to also be clear on this point. The only challenge I would say also here and share with colleagues, to have one partner actually who can cover whole Syria. That's back, of course, to the difficulties of the response itself and the context. So that's one of the key challenge. But we remain with our lead agencies and the cluster lead agencies, WFP and FAO, where we can extend that final whole of Syria holistic picture. And this is where one of the strong, actually, food security and livelihood cluster position that both lead agencies have the access and have also the technical expertise to basically tell how to give the full picture through also the cluster process. But yeah, in a nutshell, we do have the two types of partners who run the data collection. It depends of which area. By example, inside Syria, it's only WFP collect the data, and there is also a very long process for approval. It's very challenging. Also FAO support with other assessments such as the CFSAM, and also another long process for approval. And this is very inside Syria. In areas, let's say cross-border, northwest Syria, northeast Syria, partners like iMMAP, Reach, HNAP, they play a critical role by their access as well there. And also we then by the end we also supported with kind of all partners actually mentioned with remote sensing, anticipatory remote data collection. Thanks. Hope this answer over.
Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abdul Majid. I'm working as Global Food Security Cluster Coordinator with FAO. I'm co-coordinating with Mary Helen, who is at the WFP side. Just wanted to add the human element into all this discussion. All this data is about the people food security and who have the access to food. So we work with multiple partners. We work not only with science partners, but we also work with the partners who collect information at the household level. We collect information from the farmers. We collect information from the livestock herders. We also collect information about the agroclimatical conditions, weather conditions. So it's a lot of work that we carry out to ensure in each country that at least where we work, almost 33, 34 context now. I don't want to hijack iMMAP discussion, but if you want to Google food security cluster, you will get information about all the countries where we work and what are the tools available. All the tools and information is country-wise available It's on the needs as well, and it's on the amount of the response which is provided. There are also tools which also track the finances for the response as well. On the food security situation, there are various tools which tells us about the needs, about the gaps, but there are various tools which also tells us about the sort of impact of the response over a certain period of time. And one of the tools that we really rely and globally acceptable is IPC, Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, where we can see on the basis of different areas globally and also in particular countries at the provincial level or district level, whatever the domain of the data available, you can look at it that, you know, there are 5 phases of food security, from minimal to famine likely situation. So you can see that how different areas during different time periods interact and how the food security situation is behaving over the time. So is it getting better? Is it getting worse? And it also not only tells you about the area classification, that which phase this area falls in, but also tells you that how many people are actually in that phase of the food security or food insecurity situation. So this information, we are very close and strong partner of IPC globally as well as food security cluster. So we actually bring all the information from different partners, including from iMMAP, and we provide it to IPC team at the country level, and they conduct those analysis and feedback the information to us so that we can see how the food security situation with food assistance or without food assistance is behaving over a certain period of time. So yeah, just wanted to say that there are very different tools, but our main, the information is collected at the household level or from the partners by the platform of the food security cluster. But then there are different stakeholders who provide those technical support, like iMMAP is more on the side of collecting the information from partners on the response and somehow the market level information. Now they are getting a stronger partner and also providing us information on the agroclimatical conditions as well. But usually, the reach is more at the household level. They conduct the assessments and they also conduct the market surveys to provide the information. So it's very well coordinated at a national level by our team, like Mohi, who is the cluster coordinator. And usually with the iMMAP, we have information management officers and the countries where we have gap and information systems. So that's how actually it works and link with the, people food security at a country level. Over. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, please.
Thanks for the presentation. My name is Philemon Majua from UNICEF, Humanitarian Policy Specialist. Now, I just want more clarification on involvement of local actors in the information management process that you have shared. Because I think at the moment we're kind of focusing mainly on international actors. So any clarification on the local actors?
I'm not sure which one you mean. Sorry.
So local actors, mainly the national CSOs, the government, and the CBOs.
Mainly NGOs, the partners that we are working with. In terms of data collection, you mean, right? And the feedback? I'm not sure if I get the... Yeah. No. Yeah, 2 components for the localization. It's first the IM training that we provide as part of the deliverables that we do. Like we have information management training that we provide to the different partners, basically to run them through the whole process. And in terms of the real exercise on data collection, mainly the training for the enumerators in data collection and then the follow-up that we do. And we have also, as iMMAP, we have our own SOPs that we built over time for the past period that, or the experience that we have working on the field or working with partners in the field as well. We provide them with these SOPs as well and train them on them. And these SOPs also is not only limited to the iMMAP kind of thing, but it's also can be used for any other data collection exercise when it's needed. Some of the partners also, sometimes they request a specific training, for example, on tools development. And tools development, I'm saying like, for example, the Kobo toolbox development or the R analysis as well. So this is also part of the training that we deliver as part of the effort for the localization. I hope this answered the question. Thank you, Philip. Okay.
Maybe, sorry, Bello, can I add?
If you'd like to add on this, yes, please.
Yeah, I just joined from other place. Anyway, technology, we're talking, right? So, well, great to hear from you, Abdelmajid and Marie Helen. I'm very happy to see you guys also there. So, ciao from Damascus. I just want to say, in terms of the local partners, it's very important actually to mention that on data collection level, we actually have a very good participation and involvement of local partners. And by example, in Northwest Syria and Northeast Syria, we have our cluster partner, third party is a local organizations called Aram Team, who collect the household assessment that Abdelmajid was referring to as well. So that's in terms of data collection. And big part of also the WFP CPs and local partners inside Syria, actually they do collect the data as well, but after WFP train them. So I would say there is a really high involvement because the access also by the local partners is pretty high in Syria. As international organization they do, but local organizations here is pretty strong. That's on data collection side. And the other side where we look at the consultation process. So we run a very heavy consultation process for validation, for the findings, for the results. So then the local partners actually participation is also still high. Like by example, for the last humanitarian needs overview validation process, where we do it for Whole of Syria, and then because of the complexity of the situation, we run the validation and outside of Syria. So sometimes in Lebanon, sometimes in Jordan, so we can have all partners can be able to come. We had around 70 expertise. From the 70 expertise who arrive, at least we have 30% participation from local partners, and then the rest are international organizations and also UN agencies. So I just wanted to give these also two examples from the field as also experiences happening in Syria to contribute to this question. Thanks. Over back to you.
Thank you so much, Muhi. And adding on that again, like the part of the validation of the data as well. Again, like as I mentioned, it has been validated also with the different partners. So whatever data that has been collected before producing the report, the final report, we run it through the different partners, the local partners as well, to look at and to see if there is any conflict or any issues with it before moving on and producing the final report. Thank you, Muhi, for elaborating on this. And if there is more questions, yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Luke Irving. I'm with the World Food Programme. Just a quick question following on the points just been made. I worked on Syria a few years ago in a different capacity, and the sharing of data in opposition areas, say like the Northwest and Northeast, was very sensitive. And I just, hearing this sort of good cooperation that's going on and good coordination, I just wondered if things have changed or if you still encounter issues and hesitation from partners, particularly in non-governmental control areas. Just a quick general question, because it's just very reassuring to hear what's just been discussed in a good way. And I just wondered if you, I know there must be some issues, but it's just good to hear maybe things have softened. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think also Muhi, maybe from wider perspective, you can.
Yeah. No, thanks, Luca. I think that's a very actually the situation has not improved that really much. I don't know when you were here in Syria, but we still have the same challenge actually, particularly in non-government controlled areas. the data sensitivity still remain there, and also sharing particularly name of partners or studies relevant to some partners, we keep it anonymized still until today. That also this refer to, of course, better than me how the system or how it's challenging when it comes also to the political level. Now, what has maybe been improved a bit is the communication, or even with respect of the data sensitivity and protection for partners, that the Whole of Syria coordination existence as the kind of the safe platform where we can have access to the partners' outcomes as well as information that they do. So the Whole of Syria remain as a not inside Syria, as also not within Syria itself, where it operates some from Amman or from let's say the Amman main coordination platform. Where this is the only improvement actually from years ago that can actually, let's say, made it better with accessing those data and also have it more consolidated, but it still remain very sensitive. And also as a cluster, we also apply all the data protection protocol. So we, as respect, of course, to partners' desire on which level they want to be visible or they want to be known. So that I actually maybe the update since you left Syria, that's the only development. Over. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Muhi. Thank you. I think we have like 4 minutes remain. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Rami. I'm working with CRS as the Cash and Voucher Working Group co-chair in Afghanistan. Muhi, good to see you. The camera just switched on, so we're able to see your nice shirt today. So my question is a bit on the challenges you described a lot, working with a lot of partners, collecting different types of data, using lots of different tools across different challenges relating to access and relating to comparability of data sets. As a cluster, but also for iMMAP, how do you zero down, like what is the lessons learned, or what is the recommendation? How do we zero down on the data sets that we have some confidence around to make some decision making, and perhaps for preparedness or for predictivity, prediction. Predictability. There you go. Thank you. Maybe just a question just to understand this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. As I mentioned before, like the field data collection, especially when it's remote, it always, and remote and with different partners, is always a challenge to manage and to make sure that the data that has been collected is confident, whatever. So I tried to use it, but didn't work. Anyway, so first of all is something that accumulatively that, as I said, we've built is experience on providing this remote training and making sure that also one part of it is the tool building, how the tool is basically built. Sometimes some of the humanitarian actors, when they build the tool, maybe, or some other partners, I'm not sure, when they build the tool, it's the question can be generic. When we do our question, sometimes we try to make sure that the flow of the question is done in a way that making sure that the data is kind of accurate. The question that also linked to other questions as well. Sometimes you have some questions that it's verifying a previously mentioned question as well. And with the checkpoint, we'll be able to cross-check these questions through an equation and see if there's any discrepancies in between the different questions and to look at the issues. And of course, the follow-up for the daily submissions and the feedback that we do as well, it plays an important role in making sure that this data is accurate. Like most of the time, like our partners or our service provider, when they work with us as iMMAP, they find it a bit annoying with the amount of questions that we come back to them. Like you cannot get away with a specific mistake from the SOPs that we have and from the checkpoint that we have. And it's always like getting back again to them, trying to check again on the data and to verify the data and so on. Of course, there should be, or there might be some leaks here and there, but we're trying to minimize it to the minimum as much as we can. And especially, as you mentioned, like working with different partners in different locations, they have different level of experiences and they have different geographical coverage. It's always an issue. However, as Mohi mentioned, working with ARAM team specifically, the team that we're there in Syria, for example, that the one that we're working with, they started to get a great experience while working with iMMAP and other partners. So working with them, always like minimizing the errors or the issues that we have. And sometimes like we favor a specific team with according to their accuracy or the previous experience that we had with them over some other partners, even if they're cheaper. We go for the more expensive ones, so to make sure that we have the accurate data. And again, like the validation of the data again with the partners, also adding up like another layer on making sure that the data is kind of clean and accurate as we can. I hope this answered the question. Mohi, if you'd like to add anything on this.
Yeah. Just want to add one small thing. This is just to complement what you said, Billo. First, hi, Rami Habibi. Hope all is good in Afghanistan. And thanks for complimenting my shirt. Now, I just want to say that in terms of the validation, it is really important. Like when come back to, it's very good point, because usually always the preliminary findings, we have different opinions, different, partners who are not happy with the information, with the findings, with the assessments. And this happened, and this is it's what confirmed for us. It's working well, because when also we get this pushback from some partners where they actually want to demonstrate that there are some findings, they want to go through it, we want to validate it. So this is the whole exercise actually where particularly the cluster lead agencies were invest also to bring everyone for expertise in one room. We all go through the findings and the results. And this exercise is a little bit heavy, and is kind of similar to the IPC consultation process, where we run that validation. And this is where I would say we've been in a couple of these exercises, and I've seen partners and people stay for hours in the rooms, bringing other evidences, challenging us, challenging the cluster, challenging like other, information there. And then by the end, we need to come to agreement. So this is the beauty face of actually the findings of this exercise. How it goes as a process is a little bit hectic and heavy, and actually a lot of people like spend efforts and time. But this is the point of having the expertise to come actually and validate, and they are who live there, staff national from there, and they've been there for years, as well as like expertise within food security and also agriculture, come in and see, okay, this is yes, this is no, but why yes and why no? It's not just about, this figure is not correct or accurate. Then we go through this process by the end to come to a conclusion. And usually it takes at least few weeks to finalize the validation process of the final results. And here, particularly when it comes to the PEN, to the food security final, let's say, results. Just wanted to add this piece. So thanks, and over back to you.
Thank you, Mohi. Thank you so much. So, more questions? Or yes, sir, please.
Hi, I know we're past time, so I'll make it quick. My name's Glenn Erickson. I work for Global Support and Development based in the US. And I was just wondering if, apart from local NGOs, there's any process to turn findings back over to communities that are like farmers, that are interested in water quality, things like that. Or if you find that they might already know them sort of like for their own purposes, and you're just collecting data from them for the larger aid purpose.
Muhi, would like to comment on
No,
this?
thanks. This is very important actually. So then you know, like we do the household assessments, right? Last year, one of the new things that, or with the partners, we discussed and agreed to start implementing actually to conduct key II and focus group discussion following the household assessments. And this is particularly important to capture other feedback and inputs that we might missed during the household assessment collection, or we might not have the enough information and data that can inform basically the findings. So the experience was running a key IIs and focus group discussion targeting certain groups and based on what we are still lacking. So by example, looking at head of household female, so that was one of the areas. Another area actually was also the farmers and looking at the production, harvesting, and a few key indicators. In terms of experience ran, and this we did it actually the first time in Syria last year, as a kind of also complementary tools that can we used for that channel. Findings and chapter, which supported actually some of the findings coming from the household assessments, as well as give us better understanding for information we did not manage and we were not lucky to have within itself the household assessment data collection. And as a closing, I think we really need to do more in terms of the feedback and that also within this year when we start the channel 2024 process for the HPC 2024, this is one of also the areas where we would like to expand and more see what options we can work in terms of feedback mechanism or what tools we can actually create. But that's one of actually the priorities of where to basically look more farther on that. Thanks. Over.
Thank you so much, Muhi. Well, I see that the cluster took all the discussions and no one is quite interested on the techie part of iMMAP. Anyways. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. On your way out, there's some iMMAP brochures. Please feel free to take some. And if you need my card, also it's here, my contact information as well. If you have any question further, I'm ready to answer. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Muhi.
Ciao, Habibi. Thanks.
Thank you for those who are online as well. Everyone attended the session. Thank you so much.